Assalamu alaikum. Today we have to review past paper questions for periodic table chapter. The diagram shows part of the periodic table. Okay, so we have all these periodic table parts and we have all these elements that are mentioned for us. Answer the following questions using the only the symbols of the elements in the diagram. Okay, so in this question, या इस तरह के जितने भी questions होते हैं where they ask you to use only the symbols mentioned, you have to follow that. You have to make sure that you use exactly the way they're written in that question, not on the periodic table that you have at the back of your exam paper, but in that question. Each symbol may be used once, more than once, or not at all. So you can repeat, give the symbol of the element that is a catalyst in a Haber process. Now again, just like many things, this is a memorization question. ये ऐसा सवाल है जिसके बारे में आपको information notes से याद करनी है. So for Haber process, we know it is iron. When we study the chapter on non-metals, उसमें हम दोबारा इसको revisit करेंगे. So we will use Fe. Now remember, we have to use the symbol. So I will advise कि आप ये symbol लिखें, आप iron nerves ना लिखें. Although that will not be wrong, but examiner की requirement को follow करना जरूरी है. It is used to make food containers because of its resistance to corrosion. We know that that is aluminum because we use aluminum to contain, to package food and all that. क्योंकि वो corrode नहीं करता. अब वो corrode क्यों नहीं करता? We will study that again in metals and non-metals. It is about 1% of dry air. So this is the third most abundant gas in the atmosphere. The first one is nitrogen, which is around 78%. Then we have oxygen, which is around 21%. And the remaining almost 1% is argon. And then the remaining gases are carbon dioxide and other. Extracted from hematite. Again, hematite we will study in metals and non-metals. And this is iron again. Forms an ion with a charge of -2. -2 means it needs two more electrons. So that will be group 6. So the one that is given to us is oxygen. Although oxygen, sulfur, sare jo group 6 mein, they will do this. But in our options, we only have this. Moving on. Again, if you have any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me. Draw a dot and cross diagram to show the arrangement of electrons in a chlorine molecule. Show only the outer shell electron. So हमें दो चीजें यहाँ पे देखनी है. First of all, we need to know that we have to draw chlorine molecule. We will not be drawing chlorine atom. पहली चीज है. Second, only the outer shell electrons, which means कि inner shell हमने draw नहीं करना. So chlorine is in group 7 and it needs one more. It will share one. So Cl2 हमारे पास होता है. So there's two chlorine atoms that form this molecule. So हमारे पास एक इसका circle हो गया, एक इसका circle हो गया. Okay. Now they need one more electron, so they'll share one. So one pair here. You can draw it here in this space, or you can put it here and here. That's also fine. Ab uske बाद 7 electrons because it's in group 7. So the remaining 6 electrons will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and same way on this side. I am putting them in pairs, so I will also advise that you pairs में ही लिखें. State one use of chlorine. So there are many uses of chlorine. One of those is that it is used to treat water. It is used in water treatment plants. Why? Because it kills bacteria. It changes the pH of water. So उसकी वजह से water थोड़ा सा acidic हो जाता है, and bacteria cannot survive. Of course, बहुत ज़्यादा हम add नहीं करते because it's also poisonous to humans. But a very small quantity in a very large amount of water will make it safe for human use. So it is used to kill bacteria, or you can say that it is used in water treatment. Say the color of bromine. Now, there are many options for this. 3 options that you can use is red brown, reddish brown, or orange. So in तीनों में से आप कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं. They're all correct. So you can write red brown, or you can say orange. Explain using ideas about the reactivity of halogens. So remember group 7, we know that down the group reactivity decreases because atoms become bigger, it becomes difficult, or it takes more energy to gain electrons. So that is the main principle here. Why aqueous bromine does not react with aqueous potassium chloride? So what's the comparison here? Comparison potassium के साथ नहीं हो रहा है. It's about halogen. So दो halogens हैं आपके पास. One is bromine, the other is chlorine. So what's happening here? Chlorine is higher in the periodic table. Bromine is lower in the periodic table. The order in periodic table is this. So you can see that chlorine higher hai, bromine lower hai. Chlorine is a smaller atom, so it's more reactive. So we will say, because examiner is asking us about reactivity, so हमें question के answer में उसी को लिखना है. So we'll say that chlorine is more reactive than bromine. ठीक है? सो कंपैरिजन क्वेश्चन जो होते हैं उनमें आप दोनों की बात करते हैं. अगर आप खाली कह देते क्लोरीन इज मोर रिएक्टिव, सो दैट इज नॉट द कंप्लीट आंसर कि किससे ज्यादा रिएक्टिव. क्या आप पोटेशियम की बात कर रहे हो, आप पोटेशियम क्लोराइड पूरे की बात कर रहे हो, या आप खाली क्लोरीन की और ब्रोमीन का कंपैरिजन कर रहे हो. सो दैट्स व्हाई यू हैव टू स्पेसिफाई और यूज द वर्ड्स दैट एग्जामिनर वांट्स. ब्रोमीन इज अ लिक्विड एट रूम टेम्परेचर. डिस्क्राइब द अरेंजमेंट एंड सेपरेशन ऑफ पार्टिकल. अब ये देखो, दिस क्वेश्चन इज नॉट technically periodic table. This is a question from chapter 1, kinetic theory, but उसने उसको यहाँ पे connect किया है. And that's fine. There are many connections in the exam that we need to be able to make between the syllabus topics. So arrangement, we know liquid में arrangement क्या होती है? There is no arrangement. We say that there is no arrangement, or we can say that they are all random. Both are acceptable. And what's the separation? They are close, okay, but they are not entirely like far away and all that. So they're close to each other or something like that. This question is about metals and metal compounds. Okay. Describe. So description में you don't give reason. No reason required. You only, as the name suggests, describe things. With the aid of a label diagram, the structure and bonding in metals. So we know in metals का structure क्या है? We have 3 layers that you should draw and randomly placed electrons and label it. So you can draw a key or you can label it. So I usually recommend that you draw a key. So I'll be like, this is a cation and this is free electron. Okay, अब हमने इसको describe करना है. It's a 3-mark question. So हमें तीनों चीजों को describe करना है. कौन कौन सी 3 चीजें यहाँ पे? One is the cations, which are in layers. Second is the free electrons. And 3 is the force of attraction, जो कि bonding है. So structure में we have 2 things, cations and free electrons, and bonding में we have strong attraction. So that's what we'll say. We'll say there are cations in regular arrangement or regular order or close together or in layers with C of delocalized free electrons, and we will say there is a strong force of attraction. You can say electrostatic force of attraction if you want. Force of attraction between cations and electrons. There you go. The table shows the reactivity of 4 metals with cold water and steam. The table shows the reactivity of 4 metals with cold water and steam. ठीक है. Put the 4 metals in order of increasing reactivity. So यहाँ पे हम 2 चीजें देख सकते हैं. एक हम ये देख सकते हैं कि periodic table को अगर ये एक ही ग्रुप में है तो वहां से देख सकते हैं. That's not the case here. What's happening? If you look over here, the things that react slow, they are less reactive. The things that react faster, they are more reactive. So you can clearly see कि इसमें zinc react कर ही नहीं रहा है, nickel भी react नहीं कर रहा है. So they are like at the lowest level. And then cerium is more reactive and rubidium is very reactive. So rubidium और cerium के बीच में तो हमें नजर आ गया कि rubidium is more reactive than cerium. But we don't know the order between nickel and zinc. For that, let's look at the steam का reaction. So again, steam में this is reacting faster and this is reacting slower. So we will put them like that कि zinc जो है वो nickel से आ गया. Similarly, if you look over here, this also confirms our earlier order that rubidium is explosive, but cerium is fast. So you can see that the explosive one is more reactive. The full symbol of an ion of cerium is shown. Reduce the number of electrons and neutrons in this ion. Okay, let's see. Number of electrons is same as protons in an atom, but this is ion. So ion होने की वजह से we will use the idea that protons subtracted from charge, proton minus charge. So electrons are protons minus charge. So protons is 58 minus 3, 55. Number of neutrons is mass, which is A, minus proton numbers, which is Z. So that is number of neutrons. So 140 minus 58. I think that is 92, if I'm not wrong. No, 82. Again, please confirm from your calculators. The table shows some information about elements in group 5. Okay, state the electronic configuration of phosphorus. Again, let's go to the periodic table. यहाँ पे हमारे पास एक rough periodic table दिया हुआ है. Phosphorus is, I think phosphorus is here. Let's confirm. Yes, phosphorus is there. अब phosphorus को आप देख सकते हो that it is in 3rd row, 5th column. So इसका मतलब है it has 3 shells. So 3 shells हैं उसके पास, and last one has 5. So 285. So that's what we'll say, 285. State का मतलब है you don't need to give any reason, any long answer. Just give the to the point 1-2 words answer and you'll be fine. Explain. Whenever they ask you for explain, you have to give a reason. Explain why it is easier to predict the boiling point of bismuth than to predict its melting point. Let's see. So bismuth हमारे पास किस ग्रुप में है? Let's see. यहाँ पे नहीं दिया हुआ. Yeah, bismuth is in group 5. So इसी ग्रुप में हम देखेंगे कि यहाँ पे मेल्टिंग पॉइंट में इंक्रीज हो रहा है, डिक्रीज हो गया, ट्रेंड नहीं नजर आ रहा. तो यहाँ से हमें नहीं पता कि ये इंक्रीज होगा या डिक्रीज होगा. But this is clearly increasing. So there is a clear trend in boiling point, but no clear trend in melting point. And that's what we'll say. We'll say that there's a clear trend in the boiling point, but not in melting point. So that's why. So we'll say that melting point does not have a trend, or you can also say, but boiling point has a clear trend. So that is the reason we cannot specify, we cannot predict कि वो क्या होगा. यहाँ पे ये increase decrease कर रहा है, यहाँ पे clearly increase कर रहा है. Use information to explain why antimony is a liquid at 1000 degrees Celsius. Let's see. 1000 degrees Celsius is above the melting point, but it is below the boiling point. So how do things go? वो solid होते हैं, melting point के बाद वो liquid हो जाते हैं, boiling point के बाद वो gas हो जाते हैं. So we will say that. So we'll say that 1000 degrees Celsius is above its melting point, but below its boiling point. Okay, that is the answer. Nitrogen exists as diatomic molecule. Diatomic means a molecule with 2 atoms. Draw the dot and cross diagram to show the bonding in nitrogen. Again, we have to show the bonding, which means कि nitrogen की हमें molecule बनाना है, just like we did it for chlorine. So we'll draw 2 circles. Nitrogen group 5, which means it needs 3 electrons. So it will share 3. So 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. And it had 5, so इसका मतलब है कि 2 इसके पास खाली है. So 2 on the outside. So remember that these are lone pair and these are bond pair. So you should just know that, although exam में ये लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So this is good enough. Explain in terms of structure and bonding why nitrogen has a low melting point. So structure हमारे सामने. Structure क्या है? It has molecular structure. And bonding क्या है? Covalent bonding. But does covalent bonding affect the boiling point? No. Covalent bonding in this case in molecules is inside the molecule. Melting point, density, soft or hard hona, all those properties depend on intermolecular forces. So that's what we'll say, that it has weak intermolecular forces which break easily. This is confirming 2 things. One, it is telling us what kind of bonding it has, and second, it's telling us that the structure is molecular. So दोनों answer इसी word के अंदर है, and that is what you should be able to identify. Bismuth is a metal. Predict 2 physical properties of bismuth. So again, metal की जो भी traditional properties हैं, वो आप कुछ भी लिख सकते हो. हमारे पास बहुत सी properties हैं. We can say that it is a good conductor of heat and electricity. We can say that it is shiny. Another word that is used is lustrous. You can use that. You can say that it is ductile. You can say that it is malleable. You can say that it gives a ringing sound when it's hit. उसको हम sonorous बोलते हैं. You can say that it has high density or melting point. All of that is good enough. The table shows information about subparticles. Okay. Say the number of neutrons. Again, neutrons are mass minus the protons. So 35 minus 17, 18. State number of electrons in this. So 17 minus 1. Protons minus charge. So that is 18. This is a full symbol for one isotope of potassium. So there's a full symbol for another isotope. Now you can make the isotope yourself. और उसमें आपने क्या करना है, mass को change करना है, proton को change नहीं करना. How much should you change? Maximum 2. So you can put like 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. And 39 is the one that is already given. So you will pick another one. Maybe I'll pick this. But it's up to you. You can pick another one as well. But बहुत ज़्यादा change नहीं करें. Describe how potassium ion is formed from potassium atom. So how does potassium plus 1 ion form? It loses an electron. And that is how it is formed. Potassium chloride is an ionic compound. It has high melting and boiling point. Explain why it has a high melting point. Again, discuss the forces of attraction. And in this case, you have a lattice with strong attraction between positive ions and negative ions. So it has strong attraction between oppositely charged ions in a lattice. So obviously, अगर आपने high melting point है, so इसको break करने के लिए, so that break that needs high energy to be broken, or you can also say that it is difficult to break. Predict two other physical properties of potassium chloride. So one, we already see that it is high melting point. Another we can give is that it is a good conductor when liquid or when molten. We can also say that it is a bad conductor as a solid. We can also say that it is soluble in water. Remember, all group 1 salts are soluble in water. So this is good now. Okay, this is a question that is more relevant to ATP. So let's see. Bromine, chlorine, and fluorine. Bromine, chlorine, fluorine, iodine are elements in group 7. Group 7 elements react with compounds of group 7 in aqueous solution in displacement reaction. Remember displacement principle? I told you that a more reactive species displaces a less reactive species. So हमें पता है कि in the periodic table they are in this order: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. So the ones that are higher are more reactive, so they will displace the lower ones. Okay, so in this case we can easily see that fluorine is more reactive than iodine, so it displaces it और उसकी जगह वो ले लेती है. You have access to colorless solution of potassium bromide, potassium chloride, potassium iodide. Aqueous solution of bromine, chlorine, iodine are the apparatus is normally found. No other chemicals are present. Plan experiment using these solution to show chlorine is more reactive than bromine. अच्छा, अब ये दो एक्सपेरिमेंट हो गए. एक में हम क्लोरीन को बताएंगे कि वो ब्रोमीन से ज्यादा रिएक्टिव है और आयोडीन से ज्यादा रिएक्टिव. और तीसरे में हमने बताना है that bromine is more reactive than iodine but less reactive than chlorine. So यहाँ पर हमें एक और एक्सपेरिमेंट चाहिए. तो टेक्निकली हमें 3 एक्सपेरिमेंट करने हैं. So let's see किसके बीच में करना है. We have to do the reaction जिसमें हम शो करेंगे कि वो रिएक्टिव है. How do we show that it is more reactive? It displaces the other. So we want to show chlorine is more reactive than bromine. So we should have a situation जहाँ chlorine bromine को displace करे. अब for that you already have an example. Examiner gives you these hints so you can use them. So here we know fluorine is more reactive than iodine. कैसे? Fluorine element का iodide के साथ reaction करवाया and they replaced it. तो अगर आपने chlorine को show कराना है, so आप chlorine का potassium bromide से reaction कराओ. Just like उसने यहाँ पे किया हुआ है. Fluorine iodide से ज़्यादा reactive है. कैसे? Fluorine element ने उसको displace कर दिया. So अगर मुझे chlorine को show कराना है, so I'll do chlorine with bromide. Similarly, I'll do chlorine with iodide. ताकि मैं बता सकूं that this is more reactive than this. Similarly, I want to show bromine is more reactive than iodide. I'll do the same thing. I'll take bromine and I'll put it in iodide. And then obviously reaction की equation लिखेंगे. We know this is less reactive. So this will take its place. So अब क्या होगा? KCl plus Br2. और आगे क्या होगा? This will take its place. So KCl plus iodine plus here it will displace itself. So KBr plus iodine. At this point, I don't expect you to like be able to write all the formulas or equations correctly. So that's perfectly fine. The main thing that you should be able to show is the color changes. So balance इसको मैं कर देता हूँ आपके लिए. But here's the thing, examiner ने आपसे क्या क्या मांगा? What you need to do, the observations, which is the color changes, and explanation of how these show that they order is reactive. So मैं one by one इनको लिखूंगा. मैं कहूंगा add chlorine to KBr, okay, which shows an orange color. क्यों? It is colorless KBr, लेकिन वो orange हो गया क्योंकि bromine produce हो गई. Orange color, okay, showing chlorine is more reactive than bromine. You see that? हमने बताया है कि क्लोरीन ऐड करने से ऑरेंज कलर बन गया. ऑरेंज कलर ब्रोमीन का होता है. इसका मतलब है क्लोरीन उसको डिस्प्लेस करके क्लोरीन ने ब्रोमीन को फ्री कर दिया. एंड दैट इज द वे, दैट्स द रीजन व्हाई वी आर सेइंग ब्रोमीन का ऑरेंज कलर. अगर ना करती तो वो वही कलरलेस ही रहता. बट वी एडेड क्लोरीन, उसने ब्रोमीन को फ्री कर दिया एंड वी सॉ ब्रोमीन कलर दैट शोज कि क्लोरीन उसको निकाल सकती है. तो क्लोरीन इज मोर रिएक्टिव. Similarly, for the second one, we can say that add chlorine Cl2 to KCl Ki, which turns brown because पानी के अंदर आयोडीन का कलर ब्राउन होता है. By the way, iodine solid is black or gray black, लेकिन पानी में it forms brown solution. But in this part, अगर आप सिर्फ लिख दो ना कि it shows a color change या it shows कि it turns black, that's also acceptable. क्योंकि brown water के अंदर है, solid तो black ही होगा. Showing chlorine has displaced iodine. And you can do the same thing for the third one, but since we have already shown कि bromine से भी ज़्यादा reactive है वो, इतना फर्क नहीं पड़ता. But you can still add bromine to potassium iodide, which turns brown again, showing bromine is more reactive. Although bromine has displaced it. कुछ भी आप लिख सकते हैं अपने words में. And you can say that more reactive elements displace less reactive elements. Okay. So we have received 5 marks for this. कैसे? एक तो हमने ये element, ये displacement principle बताया. Second, we have shown the colors. Every color change will carry 1 mark, and every reaction that you have to do will carry 1 mark. So 1 mark for saying this, add chlorine to bromine or chlorine to KBr, or 1 mark for this. Similarly, 1 mark for showing the orange color, 1 mark for showing the brown color, and 1 mark for this thing. And that's the reason we have this. Okay. Any questions so far? So आप देखोगे कि सारे questions इसी तरह के आएंगे आपके पास. One thing that they have not asked in this worksheet, that is about water's reaction with these things. So water, when it reacts with these compounds, मैं आपको बता देता हूँ कि group 1 के साथ water कैसे react करता है, and how reaction with water is useful indication of reactivity. So for that, you have to understand the structure of water. Water is H2O. उसको हम देख सकते हैं कि when water ionizes, it changes to H positive and OH negative ion. So अगर कोई चीज इस H positive को displace कर रही है, so that shows its reactivity. Now, group 1 में we have sodium. Sodium, if I add it to water, then sodium can displace the H positive. So sodium उसकी जगह आके sodium hydroxide with hydrogen gas बना देता है. वो hydrogen को बाहर निकाल देता है. Hydrogen is displaced. Same thing happens with potassium. Potassium also displaces it. वो H positive की जगह आ जाता है, and you get that with OH. So KOH plus hydrogen gas निकल आती है. And same for anything else in the periodic table. But the key difference between these is that this is a fast reaction and this is an explosive reaction. Secondly, metal floats on water. Thirdly, hydrogen will burn, so it will pop in a flame. And fourthly, pH increases. All of these things are telling us something about the reaction. What is this telling? This tells me that group 1 has low density. That is the reason they float. This tells me reactivity increases down the group because sodium is fast, but potassium is explosive. Potassium is reacting faster. And pop in a flame is simply the presence of hydrogen gas, कि वो hydrogen produce हो रही है. And pH we'll discuss in acids and bases. It tells us that they form alkaline solution. So forming alkaline solution. So all of these things are telling us about group 1, that group 1 reactivity increases down the group because atoms become bigger, takes less energy to lose electron. They have low density, so metal will float on water, and they react with water to make alkaline solution. And that's the only part that was not in this particular worksheet. Examiner iske upar bhi question pooch sakta hai. But other than that, we have covered almost anything that they ask us about in the periodic table chapter. Transition metal ke bare mein properties about the colored compounds, the use as catalyst or definition of catalyst. We did it yesterday. That you should also know. And yeah,